This is a Brunch Pre-Oscars mini-podcast. It contains spoilers, but we can't imagine you care. If you haven't seen the movie and you're afraid of spoilers, there's no way you would logically seek out a podcast about the movie. Let us begin.
Parasite.
예시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌.
Parasite.
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 Parasite. A movie that I thought was a horror movie when I went in to go see it.
Everything about it going in, everyone was like, hey, don't look up anything about it. Just know it's going to fuck you up. Just know it's crazy and it's insane. And I'm like, well, the name's Parasite. And everyone's saying like, man, you don't want to know anything going into it. So I was expecting a lot of violin music, a lot of really scary
a lot of Ready
stuff.
or Not sort of themes.
Yeah, just a real Ready or Not type of vibe. Where they weren't out at the same time. That would be a whopper of a doubleheader.
Did you see the trailer for this movie before you went to go see it?
I did.
Yeah, and even the trailer sort of like made it seem like a horror movie.
Didn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, at some point, floodgates open in this movie. I think that they literally show a lot of the rain, the part where everything's flooded.
Yeah.
So it really made me think that at some point, floodgates are coming in this movie, and it's so metaphorical. That we're talking
metaphorical.
That we're talking about floodgates because that's what happens. So the trajectory of this movie, there is you're following it along the whole way. You're asking yourself, what's happening? I know
Where's
what
this
I'm
going?
seeing.
Yeah.
I know what I'm seeing, but what's going to happen?
It's sort of like, in that sense, it's sort of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is basically two movies where it's like you're following like this story I don't want to say it's not really going anywhere, but like there's no like real
you don't feel
consequence.
Right. You don't feel like it's in a rush.
Right.
Even though that movie, as we now do what we've been doing in quite a few of these, which is just switch up which movie we're reviewing. That movie doesn't feel like it's in a rush, but it also doesn't feel slow and long.
You're very much enjoying
you're
very much enjoying the ride that you're being taken on.
Yes.
But you know that something is coming. So like for the first, I don't know how long is Parasite, the runtime?
I think over 2 hours.
A little over
2 hours.
Not like super over 2 hours.
I would guess like 2:10, 2:15.
Yeah,
nothing crazy.
But probably for like the first hour, maybe hour and 15, you're just kind of like being taken along this ride that's like going places, but not like you're not going off a cliff or anything.
But I remember saying this when we first saw the movie. You know what the first half of the movie, what they're doing and what they're accomplishing, which is they're going to infiltrate this rich family. This poor family is going to infiltrate this rich family one by one. It's going to start with the son, then it's going to be the daughter, then it's going to be the dad, and then it's going to be the mother. And the pace at which it's operating and the pace at which they're taking over this house leaves you about 40 minutes into the movie saying, okay, all done.
Right.
So they've done what they're going to do, so you know something big is happening for a large chunk of this movie, and you have no idea what it's going to be. Right. And then once you find out what it is, which is that one of they mess with the wrong person, essentially. They in replacing the housekeeper of the house, they were separating someone from their family, and it was this big messy thing that they were running a pretty clean operation. And they were very calculated in what they were doing, and they were making it so,
and it
other than people
perfectly.
getting fired and losing their jobs, no one was really going to get hurt.
Worked perfectly for them, but they didn't see this hurdle coming, which they absolutely could have never seen the hurdle coming.
It's an impossible, but in the construct of how everything's presented to, you're like, yeah, I guess that does make sense. I mean, they do show, you see it on the second watch, there's a lot of little hints. There's a lot of, hey, the housekeeper's got someone living
subtle
in this house.
Nods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody could have ever seen that coming.
Not in the first watch. No way.
And I just watched it for a second time this morning. I was surprised at how quickly it all developed. So I do remember it happening pretty quickly in terms of them infiltrating the house. But in the second watch, obviously you know it's coming. But man, that shit happens so fast.
Yeah. And that's what I love. The pacing, that's what stood out to me on the second watch. Like, the pacing is incredible. How everything is set up, along with the music. This was not nominated for Best Original Score,
Which is
soundtrack,
crazy.
whatever you call it. And That surprises me. I'm going to break a little personal news here. I'm not a Star Wars guy, so I haven't seen whichever Star Wars movie is nominated for best soundtrack, best score. But man, this score in this movie, I don't think I noticed it the first time around, is so important to this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
especially in the scene where they're going down the tunnel for the first time.
Yeah,
that is like that's I think the peak of like suspense in this movie, and man, they fucking deliver on it. And I was watching it, and I was like, this would not be the same without this score. Because the score is incredible.
You said suspense. It's a very suspenseful movie. I believe we undertook the task of trying to label and assign a genre to this movie. That's always a good sign for a movie when it's unbelievable. And you could say 5 different things, and you could say, "Yeah, I guess it could be that. This could be this. You qualify this as a thriller. It's not a horror movie.
No,
if you haven't seen the movie,
no jump scares.
Right? But between the title and like the movie poster, you thinking maybe horror movie. It's a thriller. It's a suspense film. It's definitely a dark comedy. It's what else would you call it? It's not social science fiction, but it kind of falls
close.
In line with. In the last few years, there have been some really, really good movies about like class warfare and social inequality, and this definitely scratches that itch.
Well, this is like in the Get Out category, because Get Out is a movie that's tough to classify as well.
Get Out, I would say, though, does fall more into social science fiction, where you're like, I'm pretty positive this couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Which I feel less and less confident in that by the day, because technology's scaring the shit out of me these days. But this could, I guess, maybe it is social science fiction, because I guess this could happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
What's like totally unreasonable about it?
There's nothing like fantastic about it or anything.
No.
You know? So this goes across all genres. Bong Joon-ho is nominated for Best Director. I think he should win it.
I think so too.
Also, I realized it like halfway through the second watch. This is I'm not trying to sound like I'm making any grand statements or anything. I think this is the best movie of 2019. I think this is, and there were a lot of good ones, so we've kind of thrown around. It could be Little Women, it could be 1917, it could be Jojo Rabbit, it could be Marriage Story. Like there's not really a wrong answer this year, but forced to submit one, I would say this is the best movie of 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone back and forth, and I've like torn myself apart over it, because for me, 1917 and this movie are a tier above everything else, and I keep going back and forth, and like they're very like spectacular, amazing movies in their own right, and it's so difficult to compare 1917 and Parasite. I will just basically say that I think that both of those movies are pretty fucking close to perfect.
Yeah, and
this one, I mean, it's for sure a harder movie to make than 1917.
Yes, I like that you're adopting that. That's a good thing to apply.
Yeah.
Like, not to toot my own horn. We brought Scepter and Peanut Butter Falcon. It's a good way to, if you're not a huge, I don't know, we're not like trained actors or anything, but a good way to.
Yeah, we're not like film critics,
right?
But like that's a
good thing to apply to movies is like, how hard was this to execute?
Right.
And like in the case of Peanut Butter Falcon, we've said that that's a very easy movie to make. This is Jojo Rabbit is an impossible movie to make, and they made it excellent. This very, very, very hard movie to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, especially with all the layers to it, I mean, it's entertaining just on the surface, but also like the social commentaries that are made there are really, really strong as well. And they think they do a fucking fantastic job. And I know, this isn't Bong Joon-ho's first go around with that, because I don't know if you saw Snowpiercer.
I didn't.
You didn't see Snowpiercer, but like it had similar themes and was also a really good movie. But this one blows it out of the water.
I'm more of a catch the second film of a hot shit director.
As we know, Ari Aster.
I am not seeing Hereditary.
This movie also wins the award for, hey, don't look at the poster before you see the movie.
Right. So
you do not want to get the poster
gives away more than the poster gives away more than the trailer does.
Absolutely.
And I forget what the trailer is. All I remember is just a lot of the water coming. But but the it doesn't spoil anything. You know, when you see the poster, though, okay, so people start dying in this, which I don't like that. I don't like giving that sort of stuff away. I remember even when Get Out came out, I hadn't seen the trailer in so long that I forgot that all I knew was they go to this place and something weird is happening. But then when I went back and watched the trailer after I saw the movie, I was like, oh, this trailer gives away so much stuff. It's a good thing I wasn't really paying attention during the trailer. So in general, movies don't do that.
And in this movie, we mentioned the fact that it doesn't really go too fast in the first half. Like, you could go an hour and a half of this movie and think that nobody's going to die in it.
Sure,
100%.
Sure. On the second watch, I also was like, the acting performances in this are so good.
Very, very good.
The first watch, all I'm thinking about is like, what's happening, kind of on the edge of my seat, and you're kind of blown away by how well put together the film is. So I guess on the first watch, you do notice like the music and shit like that, but the acting performances in this are really, really good. The scene where, and we're going with, so we don't confuse people. If you've seen this, you know each character has multiple names. So rather than confuse people and say, I don't know, we could say Kevin is the son, Jessica is the daughter, but they have Korean names, they have real names, they have fake names and everything. So maybe we'll just refer to the father, the rich father, et cetera, the housekeeper. When the son, Kevin, is tutoring the rich daughter for the first time, it's not necessarily a monologue, because I don't know that it's monologue-ish. The scene that in which he wins the job tutoring her, when he talks about the quiz or the test, and like, you need vigor. This taking a test is all about momentum. That's incredible. Yeah. That's because that's the kid having to put on an acting performance to get this job.
Like that was something that like stood out to me on the first watch and the second watch, where it kind of like took me out of the movie a little bit, because the acting was so good. Yeah, because these are just like it's like a poor family. Yes, and they're obviously not trained actors or whatever, and they go in, and like all of a sudden this kid Kevin, who we've only seen be kind of a goofball and like just like a very
down on his luck guy.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he puts on this spectacular performance to win this job. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from?
But they do show the family runs lines and they practice.
They explain it.
Everything. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You see later when the dad is, Mr. Kim is going to get the housekeeper in trouble or fired or whatever for having tuberculosis, which she doesn't have.
Very bold.
That's a funny scene.
I mean, there are some parts of this movie that are a little like
it's dark comedy though.
Yeah, I'm not saying like it's like inappropriate or whatever, but like there are a lot of exaggeration parts where it sort of makes you roll your eyes. Like they make the mother believe that she has tuberculosis and is literally dying in the house. Well, and then when they go down to the basement and they slip off the stairs, like not once but twice.
It's so important to this movie that the mother of the rich family, Madame, as she's often called,
is painted in a very gullible
She's
light.
Such an important character because
she sets everything in motion.
She's young, she's naive, and her ability to be taken advantage of, to be got, is what, and now you understand the title of the film, Parasite. This poor family is just looking for an opportunity to really screw someone over. Yeah. And this kid sees this woman, and he's like, we've got everything we need, and she's the nervous system of that family, and everything goes.
And
through
she's
her.
vulnerable,
Totally
vulnerable, and they establish that family dynamic pretty well, and in like a pretty subtle manner, where like she really does not want to anger her very rich, powerful husband. And like every time he walks in the house, she sort of like scrambles to make sure everything's in order, and that like
she also does that when anybody walks in anywhere. She's a very anxious person.
That's true, but I think that like that establishing that as part of the family dynamic was really important to understand how this all sort of got in motion, because like she will do anything to make sure that her husband is not unhappy when he walks through the door after work.
Yes, this is just 100 out of 100.
Also,
film.
100 out of 100. The setting, like the house itself,
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important to the movie as well. And I mean, that setting is awesome. That house is great. Just like the closed-in yard, it feels very
Metaphorical.
yes, very metaphorical.